Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I would like to start first with a very short prayer that I do anywhere I go. It doesn't matter if I am in a school like today, or if I am in a hospital like I was this morning, or in a congress, or it doesn't matter where I am. I always do a very short prayer in which basically I remember my teachers and the teachers of my teachers, my masters, because something very important for me is the gratitude. And if there is anything that I can share with you today, it's because someone has taught me. And in Buddhist tradition, it's very important, the gratitude that we have towards those that teaches us. So I just start with this very short prayer. The first part of the prayer is in Tibetan, the second part of the prayer is in Sanskrit. And it's just a way for me to be grateful to those who taught me, because that's where from, if anything I have to give to you, to share with you, it comes from them. Okay? Locho sambo bagyo drashe pa tuje tempe chile yamno da pege drulo sambe zebrache pande lame shat ulwade om guru vajradara sumati munisha sanekar Uta vardanya shri vadra varsa manya sarva siddhi Pakyuke kudanda gilu, pakyuke sundanda gima, pakyuke tubanda gi, tenyame chittu jingelu. Makyuke kudanda gilu, makyuke sundanda gima, makyuke tubanda gi, tenyame chittu jingelu. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Soha. So, I would like to start with something that I don't like so much now. But I think today it would be the best. It would be to talk a little bit about myself. Okay? Because we're talking about the journey, the inner journey, and there is a whole journey, there is a whole path through which I came here actually. Okay, so as it was said, my name is Lama Michel, I am Brazilian, and I come from a family on the side of my father, Jewish family, which my grandparents escaped from the Second World War from Germany and Austria and ended up in Brazil and Argentina. And the family of my mother, I come from a Christian family where they were Protestant. And when I was 5 years old, for many different reasons, now it's too long to come into details, I met a Tibetan Lama, a Buddhist master. My parents met him also, and the first moment that I saw him, I remember quite well. I was very small, I was only 5. But the moment I saw him, somehow I fell in love with him. Like, I saw him and I didn't want to go anywhere else. I wanted to stay nearby him, I wanted to be there. I couldn't understand much of what was happening actually. And then I was just having this experience of being together. Some years later, basically he was coming every year back to Brazil. My mom and my father, they helped to open the first Buddhist center in Brazil. And like this, things start moving. When I was around 8, we went to India together with my parents, together with my master. And we went from the whole south of India up to Nepal, going through all the Buddhist holy places for 3 months. And all of these experiences, they changed a lot of things inside of me. Meeting different people, going to different cultures. For me, much more than, let's say, the external traveling, it's the internal experience that we have when we go through different situations. And all of this, when I was 10, I went to Tibet, and all of these things together, but mainly this meeting with Lama Gangchen, it made me to reflect and to think about what I was doing in Brazil. I come from a very good family, I have wonderful parents. I had nothing ever lacked for me materially, the other way around. I had much more than what I would actually need. And nice school, good friends, everything was good in the life I had in Brazil. But I started making me a question. And the question which I was putting to myself at the time, it was, okay, I studied mathematics, geography, social studies, science, Portuguese, English, and like this, you know better than me. I forgot, long time since I haven't been to school. And the question which I made at that time, I had one answer, but it was, why do I study all of this? What's the point? What's the reason? Where is all of this going to take me? Nowadays I would have a different answer, okay? But at that time, I was not yet 12, I was 11. The answer that I found was, okay, I study all of this in order to finish school, go to university, possibly go to a good university, get my degree, and if everything goes well, find a job that I like and I am well paid. It looked like something good, no? But then I started looking around to my family, which were the adults which I knew, especially my mother's family, and which is a more wealthy family, and at the same time, we used to have like big family gatherings, like Christmas, like at least 80 people in my mom's family, Christmas time. So we were at these moments, and I was looking at my uncles and other people, and I was listening to their conversations. And most of the times when I would sit down and listen to a conversation of an adult, what would I listen to? Complaints. They were complaining about something in their lives. And then whenever I saw my teacher, Lama Gangchen, I always saw him happy, satisfied. So basically, I was looking at people that they had a lot of money, they'd been to the best universities, they had good jobs, and still they were always complaining about something. So the question that I did to myself was, what do I really want? Which is the role model that I want to follow? And for me at the time, I found a role model within my own master. So making a long story short, when I was 12, after one period, like a year and a half thinking about all of this, I decided I want to follow his footsteps. So I went to live in a monastery in the south of India. Big monastic university, around 4,000 monks. And I stayed there for 12 years studying. And I was never the best student, but there I needed to study much more than I used to study in Brazil. And monastery was very good. I really liked the life in the monastery, even though it's with a lot of discipline, and it's not like, how to say, it's not an easy life in a way, but I always enjoyed it very much. Then some 12 years ago I came to live in Europe, in Italy, because my master is living here, and then I finished one part of my studies, and I just wanted to be with him. And this gave me the opportunity to be here. Then I finished all the rest of the studies in Tibet in the past 10 years. And basically, then, since that time, I have been here just sharing the knowledge which I have acquired and experience, and teaching Buddhism and going to places where I am invited, basically, and taking care of the Buddhist center in Italy. So this is a little bit more or less why I am here today, which is the whole process that brought me here today. I want to bring to you some points which, it's not a class. I don't want to teach anything to any one of you. That's not my idea. It's not to give you a class about something. Okay? My idea is basically to share with you some of the things which for me were very useful, which I learned in this whole process which we call life, which actually in Tibetan the word that we use is journey, is a path. We use this precise word. the spiritual path, the path of our life, which is the process of knowledge and understanding and transformation of our own selves. Okay? There were some things which I learned, some things which I experienced, and I'd like to share them with you. Okay? Hoping that it can be of use for all of you also. So, the first thing is that it doesn't matter where we go, it doesn't matter who we meet, it doesn't matter the culture, the age, the social status, if the person is healthy or sick, it doesn't matter what is the religion that we follow, if we have a lot of knowledge or if we have no knowledge. I met many people with not much knowledge but a lot of wisdom also, We have all types of people. It doesn't matter where we go, who we meet, everyone has something which is very, very similar, which makes all of us equal. Everybody wants to be happy. And nobody wants to suffer. Okay? It's quite clear, right? And the most interesting thing of all is that everyone, independently of who they are, what is their culture, what is their status, whatever, they do everything they do. We do everything we do, every one of us, thinking it is the best for our own happiness. But very often we are guided by our own ignorance, in the sense that we do something thinking it's the best for our happiness, but after, when we go a little bit further on our path, we look back and say, oh, it was not really the best. This happens in our life, that's normal. But we do everything we do thinking it's the best. So, the main thought which I come is, okay, if what we want is to be happy, each one of us is trying to be happy in one way or another, I think there is a question that needs to come before. Because the first question that comes is, how can I be happy? But there is a question that comes before. Remember, questions most often are more important than answers. I don't know if it ever happened to you to sit in front of the computer in Google and have no question. If you sit in front of Google and you know what to ask and the right way how to ask, most probably you get the right answer. If you don't know what to ask or how to ask, most probably you will not get the answer. That's how it is. So very often the most important thing is to have the right question. Once we have the right question, the answer will come. So when I was studying, which I missed a lot at that time, so enjoy. Sometimes we think it's boring, whatever, but when we start having all the responsibilities of life and so on else, then we miss the time when we could just study. The system of study in which I was, it was based on dialectics. We used to have like maximum 2 hours of classes a day. And the rest of the time, and we had like 12 hours of study a day, it was dedicated for reading, for memorizing, and we had around 6 hours a day dedicated for debating. So debating was basically dialectics, and that's how we learned, by confronting each other. The teacher would come and would explain something to us. It looked very clear. Then he would say, how come this is like this? Because that is like that. Then it would come out, and we would expect him to give an answer. Then he said he would never give the answer. Now you go and debate about it. And our role in the debating was to question everything. It didn't matter what we learned, we needed to find all the other different points of view which were around that. So if I ask, is it white? You need to prove to me that it's not white. If I ask you one thing, if I tell you something, you need to prove me the other way around. And like this, and vice versa. So with this, I learned that very often, the most difficult thing is not to give the answer, is to find the right question. So the question for me when we talk about our inner journey, first of all, is when we make a journey, we go somewhere. So the first question is, where am I going? Not how do I get there? So the first question is, what is happiness? I don't know if you've ever asked this to yourself. What is happiness? Because what we really want is to be happy, but what is this state of happiness? How can it be? Is it possible? Is it not possible? And what is it? It's not an easy question. And it's not something that we can get an answer like this in a day. It's something that we need to think about. Okay? So, I like to share with you a little bit what is my own idea of what is happiness. And a little bit of how we can get there. Okay? First of all, normally when we think about happiness, what do we imagine? An inner state or an external condition? We imagine happiness as something that is independent of where we are, with whom we are, where we go, or we imagine happiness which is connected to the place where we are, the people with whom we are, the conditions in which we are. What do you think? Or the first or the second? It's more just something internal, or it's more something external? Don't be afraid of not giving the right answer. What do you think? There is no right answer. There is what we think. How do we imagine happiness? It is connected to our body. Is it connected to our appearance? Is it connected to our financial, economical situation? Is it connected to having a family in the way how we expect? Is it connected to our career and our job? Is it connected to what?
I think it's connected to the people around you and how you treat them and how you experience life with them.
Yes. And many other things also, which is the people with whom we live. That's very important. But most of all, as you said, it's connected to the way how we treat each other. Okay? So very often we have an expectation that happiness is something that is based on a specific condition. Okay? So somehow we imagine how the world, and I'm not talking about the world as a whole, I'm talking about the world around us, our little world. We somehow imagine how it should be, who are the people we want to be together, how they should behave, which is the place where we want to be, how things should be, how things should not be. We have our own idea, and we strive in our life to try to make things in that way. What I learned, not necessarily in the most easy way, sometimes also hitting the face, no? It is that if we expect the world to be perfect, if we expect things to be as we want them to be, it's not going to work. Because basically, what's the age more or less you have? 16? Around 16? Okay. I was more or less your age when I understood something that completely changed my life. It really made a big difference for me. It was, problems exist and will always exist. And I said, how good, how wonderful. If problems exist and will always exist, this means that this state of happiness is not a state without problems. I cannot base my happiness on a life without problems, on everything is perfect. It depends mainly on how I internally deal and relate with the situations and the people and the places I go. So for me, it became very clear that happiness is not a place. It is connected to the place where I am. It's not the people with whom I am, it is connected with the people with whom I am. It's not the state of my health, it's also connected to the state of my health. It's not what I have materially, even though it is connected also to that. But it's the way how I relate to all of that. That's what actually makes me happy. Okay? I will go directly to the point of some of the key things that I think that makes a big difference in that. And then, because we don't have so much time, because some of you need to leave at some time, and then after we'll have some more time for some questions and so on. But while I'm talking, for instance, what are you listening to? What do we listen when someone talks? To words or to sounds? What arrives in our ears? Words or sounds? Normally we would say words, right? But actually it's sounds. I understood this clearly one time coming back from Holland. I was in the airplane, arriving in Italy. And then this thing came to my mind because the person from the airplane, the steward, he was talking in Dutch. And when someone is talking in Dutch, for me it's just sounds. It's not anything that I can really understand out of it. No? It's the same way if I start talking in Tibetan. I just made the same question in Tibetan, okay? So when we listen to someone talking, actually what arrives in our ears? Sounds. What do we do to these sounds? We attribute meaning. That's what is a language. A language is actually a convention between sounds and meaning, concepts. Okay? Is it clear? Now, have it ever happened that you say to someone, oh, nobody understands me? Or you don't understand me? Don't really worry, nobody will ever understand you, really. In the sense that no one can attribute the same meaning of what we are saying as we attribute. How is verbal communication? I have some ideas, I have some concepts, some emotions. I transform that into sounds. You listen to that sound, and then what happened? You try, and then you will transform again that sound into meaning and emotions. Can it always fit? Not really. So, for example, it's like if we send a message to someone, you know, like when we send an email, whatever. Normally the message is encrypted, right? So what happens if when the message arrives on the other side, the decrypting software is not using the same key? It's not having the same version of software, let's say. The message will never get exactly the same. This is what happens when we talk to each other most of the times. When we see something, what appears to our eyes? Forms and colors, or objects and people and so on? If we truly analyze, in the spontaneous way, we would answer people, objects. Sure, I'm looking at you. But if we start observing and analyzing, we will see that what appears to our eyes is basically forms and colors. And what do we do to the shapes and colors? We attribute meaning. Can any one of us see the same thing in the same way? If we take, for instance, this glass of water. Each one of us that is here, okay, we may all call it a glass of water, but does it exist exactly in the same way for each one of us, or it exists slightly differently? It's a bit different, right? For one is big, for the other one is small, for one is mine, for the other one is yours, for one is good, for the other is bad, and like this we can go on and on and on. So, even much more different things, like I have one friend who is living with us in Italy, in the center, and she's a trainer for Olympic Games, so athletes that are going to Olympic Games, she's helping them to train. And she was given a very particular job in the last Olympics in Brazil, which was to train the native Brazilian Indians from the Amazon forest on bow and arrow. Because they are very good in bow and arrow, because that's part of their life. They have very good concentration and so on. So there were many communities which are already mixed with the normal communities of people, so they wanted to bring their pride up, so they actually brought them to the Olympics. So she had the job to train these people. So she went around the forest for 2 years looking for the right people and then starting to train them and so on. So some of them were able to enter into the Olympic team. And when she arrived in Rio de Janeiro with this group of guys and girls that actually they came from the forest in the Amazon, they were never in a big city. So they arrived there, everything very nice. So one day she didn't know much what to do, it's very hot, so she said to them, today we go to eat ice cream. She said, okay. They asked, what is ice cream? That's what they answered, ice cream. They never saw ice cream in their life. They don't have refrigerators, no electricity, no? No one ever explained to them what ice cream is. So she tried to explain what ice cream was, and she said, okay, that's useless, let's go to have some ice cream. So she went to the supermarket, she bought a few of these 1 kilo packages of ice cream. And then as she was paying, one of the guys, he was curious, so he opened the ice cream box. And he was looking, and it was really very hot that day. So he took and he saw this very cool thing there. He didn't know really what it was. So he took some of the ice cream and he started passing on his face. Was he wrong? What was he doing? He was cooling himself. It worked. What do I want to say? When we see something, what do? We attribute meaning to it. If we use a different way of explaining, which is what is said, for example, in quantum physics, it is saying that in every object, in every phenomenon, in everything that exists, there are infinite possibilities. If I take, for instance, this object here, how many things this can be? Can it be, okay, the most simple way, water to drink, glass to drink water? Yes. Can I use it to hurt someone? Also. Can I use it to put on the table to hold paper? Or can I use it to plant a little tree, little flower, whatever, as a small vase? How many functions can I give to this? Countless, right? You can use it in so many different ways. So how many possibilities exist right now at this very right moment in this very same object? Basically countless. But what do? We choose which one we want to relate with. Okay? Sure, I cannot say this is a chocolate cake because it cannot sustain that functions. But I can give so many other functions to it. So what do I want to say with that? In the same way that when we listen to sounds and we attribute meaning, the same thing happens with everything that we do, everything that we see. Basically, we are incapable of seeing anything, perceiving anything independently of ourselves. Everything that we see is a reflection of ourselves. I see you through the education I received, the experiences I had, through whom I am. Can we see anything? Can we listen to anything independently of ourselves? No. It's like putting glasses on. No? If I put a green glass, I see everything green. If I put a pink glass, I see everything pink. And we wear the glasses of ourselves. So when we have someone else that sees the same thing in a different way, he's just being himself. And we are being ourselves. So one of the things which I learned on this journey, on this path, which is a long path, is that existence, the world in which we live, is relative. And the way how we see things is the most important thing. It's more important how I relate to reality than what reality becomes. It's more important the way how I relate to the world than the world in which I live. Because one of the things that we cannot change the world, we can change the way through which we relate to the world. Okay? One example. One time I went to a school in Italy. It was around, I arrived there, I didn't know really what was going to happen, where I was going. And I arrived in the school, there were 200 kids from 5 to 7 years. And I looked and I said, what do I do now? It was like 10 years ago. And then I looked at that and I said, okay. Then I talked to the teacher, and the teacher said, oh, please talk about Buddhism. We have an hour and a half. And I said, okay, how do I do that? I was a little bit, not frightened, but worried to say. Then I start just talking in a very simple way. There is one very nice thing of talking to small kids. They always answer back in group. So you say, what is this? They all answer together. No, it's very nice. So I start having this dialogue with the kids. No? Then one moment I asked them, hi kids, is there any toy that you would like to have? And all the kids answered, yes. Did it ever happen, maybe in your birthday or in Christmas, that you got the toy that you wanted? All the kids, yes. Were you happy? Yes. How long have that happiness lasted? Long or short? They answer me, short. Do you still have the toy? Yes. Does it make you happy as before? No. Do you want another toy? Yes. How long is the new toy going to make you happy? Long or short? And a little bit disappointed, they looked at me and they said, short. That were not special kids, you know. We all know, since we are very small, that how does it work? The more I have, the more I want. The more I want, the less I have. Our problem, which makes us unhappy, is not because we don't have enough. Most of us, we live in the rich part of the world. We don't have really anything missing. We suffer more because we don't have what we need or because we don't have what we want. What we want. So the main issue, how do we satisfy this? How do we make ourselves to feel good with the place where we are and the people with whom we are and the conditions in which we are and the things that we have? We make that by getting more and more and more and changing the world and changing the things and changing the people, or by being happy with what we have. Satisfaction is one of the keys for our own happiness. And it comes in a very simple way. I don't know, have any one of you read 1984 of Orwell? You? Okay. It's an interesting book. And in this book, there is one passage which I really like. I read it many, many years ago. But in this book is a novel which was, it's where from comes the idea of the Big Brother. Anyhow, little political book, but it doesn't matter. The point which I want to bring is that it has a part which is called the world in which it's depicted. The book was written around 1944, something like that. And it was how would the world would be in 1989, 84, 40 years old. And at the time in this book they had the idea which was a new language. And the language was called Newspeak. In the Newspeak, it had a very interesting, I think. Every year the vocabulary will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the way for the government to control the people would be to take away the words of the concepts they didn't want the people to have. Why? Because if we have no words to say something, slowly that idea fades away. Okay? The way how we speak directs the way how we think. Actually, they are together. Sure, our thoughts, our words are a reflection of our thoughts, but the way how we speak, it directs the mind also. Okay? So, what happens is that there are ways in which if we change the way how we use our language, it will change the way how we think also. And this is something which it's very useful actually. And there are some things which I learned on that which really made a big difference for myself. So one thing, two very simple rules that I learned, and I hope you can have your own experience on that, especially on one side. the more I complain, the more I criticize. Criticize not in the sense of having a critical mind and analyzing things. Criticize in the sense of complaining, okay? Only seeing what is wrong. The more I complain, the more unsatisfied I am. The more unsatisfied I am, the more I suffer. The more I am grateful, the more satisfied I am. The more satisfied I am, the more happy I become. And both of them are habits, because our mind works through habits. Our mind works that the more I do something, the easier it becomes. Okay? So we need to learn to say, okay, what is that I want? And then we need to go on that path. Our journey of changing ourselves is not something that comes from one day to the other. It's something that we need to induce ourselves to be what we want to be, so that gradually we change and we become truly what we want to be. I don't know if this is clear. There is a very big distance, remember this, between understanding and realizing. First we understand, then we comprehend, we have no more doubt about that. And then we need to get familiarized with that idea until it becomes part of ourselves. So for example, one thing is I understand, oh, it's not good to complain, it's better to be grateful. Another thing is to put that into practice. And how we do it? By putting it in a daily life, by saying, even though it doesn't come spontaneous, it's better to be a person that is artificially grateful than a person that is naturally complaining all the time. So it's better to go and say, okay, thank you, how nice, how good. Then slowly it becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, then it starts bringing all the results that come after it. So, one of the important things that we did, for me, that I learned in this process until now, and I know I still have a lot to go, is that there is no results without effort. What we want to change in ourselves, we need to start doing it now. I did big changes in my life when I was 11, 12. It's never too early and it's never too late. But please ask yourself, what is happiness? And then from that we ask ourselves, how do I get there? What do I do in order to be happy? In my own experience, what I believe is that happiness is not coming from changing the world, but from changing the way how we relate to the world. That's the most important thing. Okay. I know some of you need to leave. Is that correct? Yes or no? Because I was told that 2:45. Otherwise, then I go a little bit. Okay, sorry. Okay. So I just divided the most important things I put in this 45 minutes. Then now we just go on with some other things, okay? As we have time, we take opportunity of being here together. Now, nowadays I have a different answer for the first question which I did when I was 11 actually. The answer is, why do we study? The first answer I got, real answer, was from a friend. His name was David. Yeah, I think it was David. I have bad memory with names actually. And so many years since I haven't seen him. Actually, he passed away already many years ago. He was a priest, Christian priest, from Australia. And we met one time in a traveling in Tibet. And he was a professor of phenomenology in a university in Australia. And we became very good friends. Even though he was much older than me, we became good friends. Then talking together, one day he explained me something that really made big sense to me. He said, you know, Why we study all that we study in school? One of the main reasons is to teach us how to learn, so that after we can really learn what we want. We train ourselves to learn. We train ourselves to understand things, and we gain the basis of knowledge that after allows us to learn other things. So learning is very important, and every information that we receive is going to help us to get other information after, to connect things. It's like connecting dots. So that's actually very important, and to use the life in the way how we want. But one very important thing which for me makes a big difference is, yes, we learn how to, we receive a lot of information, but I believe you already do this here, but I like to share this also. We need to use our own knowledge and our own ability of understanding and analyzing. That's so important. This is something that for me made a big difference in the education I received. I was obliged to question and to look for answers, and many times by myself together with my student friends, and it was quite intense actually. And this was something that really made a big difference. Okay. But now, I think to conclude this first part, there are three main things that we can do on our journey. And if anybody would ask me, okay, can you give the essence of your path, of your journey? What is it made of? I think there are three things which I work on. I have not fulfilled it completely yet. It is part of my path. The first one is to love myself. The second one is to love others. And the third one is to live in a way that is coherent with reality. I call it to have a correct view of reality. To relate to things in a coherent way. So I like very briefly to bring these 3 points to you, okay? First one, loving ourselves. What does it mean to love? If I go to some of you and I say, I love you, what would be very often the reaction? Wait, what do you want now from me now? Because in our culture, we have an idea that love is connected with desire, with possession somehow. And love, what I mean by love, which is the love that is taught in Buddhism, is the simple wish of the other person's happiness. I love you means your happiness is important for me. I wish you to be happy. That's what it means when I say that I love you. So I love myself. What that means, I want to be happy. But how do I put that into practice? It's actually very simple to explain, not so easy to do, but it's quite simple. Each one of us, one exercise that you can do also, which is quite good, make a list, like make a column in the middle, line in the middle, then you make 2 columns. On one side, you will write all the things that are bad to you, that are harmful to you, that depend on you, and that you continue to do. Other things that are not good to us and that still we do? I think so. Normally everybody has, okay? So on one place we put, what are the things that I do, that I know that are not so good for me, I know that are harmful or bad for myself, but I still do them. And we write them down. On the other part, we write, what are the things that I know that are good to myself, but I don't do? Okay, let me write them down. One thing, this list must be somehow secret, okay? It's not something to share around, because if we need to show to other people, then it will change. We will write it differently if we need to show to other people normally. So it's just for ourselves. So we write down what I do that is harming myself, but I continue to do, what I could do that is good for me, but I am not doing. Okay, it's simple, no? Don't need to have the right away answer. Take some time, write it down slowly. One day come one thing, another day comes something else. Then, take from the list 2 things. One good that you need to do, one bad that you need to avoid doing. Small things. Don't start from the big ones. Start from the real, simple, small, stupid things. And make the deep commitment to cultivate what is good and to abandon what is harmful. That's the law of oneself. I'm not here to tell you what is good and what is bad, okay? This is something that we learn on our own path, on our own life. There are things that in a moment in our life we think are good, and later we understand that are not good. There are things that we think that we thought were bad, but later we will see that actually they are good. This depends on our own path, or on our own life. That's one of the jobs of the parents, actually. They try to bring to their own kids, saying, okay, I thought this was good, but actually it was not good. I hope you understand before me. And they try to bring, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. Because there are some things that we can show, some things that we need to go through our own experience. That's normal. But first step, love ourselves. Make a list, what is good, what is bad, cultivate what is good, abandon what is bad. Eating, speaking, thinking, whatever. Okay? Easy or difficult? What do you think? Easy, difficult? It's not so difficult, come on. Right? But we need to do. Then we can become, slowly we become more experts in it. Slowly we go more and more deep. Then we can go more and more. Then we update our list and we put more subtle things into it, more important things into it. So the first step on our path is to love ourselves. Cultivate what is good and abandon what is bad for us. Related to our body, to our speech, to our mind, to our choices, the place we live, the people we meet, everything. Okay? Second part, love others. To love others is actually, how to say it? It's one of the greatest things that we can do for ourselves. One of the persons that I met that really touched me deeply as a person of great love was Mother Teresa. I think all of you have heard about Mother Teresa, right? Of Calcutta. And I remember I was in India, in Calcutta, it was 1995. And we went to see her together with my master, because we were in a place where he received an award which was given by Mother Teresa, then he gave an award to her also. And then we went to see her in her house, in her center. And it was this very, very short lady. And her health was not good at the time. So she was very curved and she had some difficulty to walk. But she manifested so much joy. Just to be near to her, people were excited by happiness. It was very interesting to see. Everybody that was around was like touched by her in such a way. And everybody was just like, oh, happy inside. And what was this coming from? I believe from the love she had for everyone. The way she looked to each one, it was so deep, so kind, so warm. But there is one thing I am very much sure by looking to her. If I would ask her, now she had already passed away, but if we would ask her, someone one time told me that this question was done to her, but if we would ask her, who received more benefit, the people you helped or yourself? I'm sure she would answer myself. When we do something for others, when we truly wish the happiness of others, the common well-being of others, as we wish our own, and we do something for others, it brings us much more happiness, much more joy than when we do something just for ourselves. This for me is very clear. It's something that when we truly open our heart, it is like something that gives this inner warm feeling. that gives us deep satisfaction, deep well-being. It's not simple, it's not obvious. But going directly to the point, the conclusion of this would be, selfishly speaking, because somehow we are selfish, we think about ourselves, that's our priority. Selfishly speaking, the best thing is to be altruistic. Because all the people that I have met that were the examples, and there are the examples of happy people, satisfied, balanced, joyful, are people that are much more altruistic than selfish. Are people that take care of the others, that love other people. Are people that when see others, they are able to look in their eyes and wish for their happiness. And this is something that we can train ourselves in. This is something that we can actually bring to our life. With our friends, with our family, in the context where we would work, it doesn't matter where. Okay? And this is something that it's really, I believe in my path, one of the most important things I learned. And it really makes a big difference. So remember this, okay? Even if we look, this is another thing which I saw very clearly. For example, people with depression, which is a common disease nowadays, right? I think, is there anyone that have never met someone with depression? I don't think so. Most of us know someone or have experienced ourselves or know someone that has or have had depression most of the times. Okay? One time someone told me, depression is a sickness that comes out of selfishness. And I was thinking about it, And I was looking at people that really are taking care of others and give importance for others and dedicate their life for others, normally they're not depressed. The more we only think about ourselves, the more we are only focused on the I and the my. Some people say to me, but I am not selfish. My children are more important than myself. Sure, your children. Remember that the my is an extension of the I. No? But the more we are focused only in ourselves, the more life becomes hard and dark and difficult and closed. The more we truly open ourselves to others, the more we go and look to other person and say, I wish you to be happy. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do, but your happiness is important for me. I wish you to be free from suffering. I don't know who you are. As I don't want to suffer, you also don't want to suffer, and I respect that, and I will help you for that. The more we do that, the more our own life becomes light, becomes beautiful, becomes meaningful. So, one thing for my own path, which became very clear, is that to love others is one of the most important parts on our own path, for our own happiness. To take care of others, to give for others. And this doesn't mean to give up on ourselves, no? Not at all. The third point, which, last but not least, as I say in English, is to have a correct view of reality. And I like to give just two examples. One of them which we already touched before, but just to give two very short examples. First of them is, do we live in a reality that is permanent or impermanent? How are things that we see? Everything that we perceive, we touch, we see, is it static? Or is it constantly moving and changing? It's changing, right? Good. So we live in a reality that is impermanent. It's constantly transforming. We as people, are we in constant transformation or we are static? We are also in constant transformation, right? But let's say we meet today. Then we are going to see again after 1 week. When we go to meet the person in the next week, who do we think to meet? The same person or someone slightly changed? The same person normally. Okay? We go out for vacation, we come to the school after whatever, 1 month, 2 weeks, whatever the time you have a vacation. When we come back, which place do we expect to see? The same place or a place that is slightly changed? The same place. So what happens is that even though we live in a reality that is impermanent, it appears to us as if it was permanent. So can we suffer when things change? Can we become upset because things are not in the way how we expect them to be? Can we go to a friend and say, oh, but you are not how you were before, you have changed? We are always changing. Everything, all the time. What happens is that we relate to everything through an image that we create. And our image is not changing. So when we go to see the place again, we expect to see what? The image that we have created of the person, of the place, of the situation. And most of the times it does not fit. And what happened? We become upset. So what we need to understand when we talk about correct view of reality, what would be the correct view in this case? To see the impermanent reality as impermanent, instead of seeing what is impermanent as permanent. That's a correct view of reality, to be coherent, consistent. It's impermanent, so it's impermanent. We live in a relative world, so its relative is relative. I see in one way, you see in another way, and that's fine. That's simply how things are, because no one is going to see things exactly the same way. We are different, we have different backgrounds, different experiences, so naturally we will see things differently. And one of the things that come with this is two things. We relate very often to the future, creating expectations, or not. Or how things will be, we need to give them, let's say we start an exam. Do we have an expectation of how the exam is going to be? Maybe yes. We go to see a friend, we have an expectation what reaction the friend will have. Or whatever, okay? We create expectations in our life. What happened when the situations happen just as we expected? We're happy. We feel everything is in its right place. But what happened when the things don't happen the way how we expected? What do we say to ourselves? Oh, my expectations were not right? Or we say things are wrong? Normally we say things are wrong. When actually they are just where they need to be. What simply we couldn't foresee how they would be. So what happens is that we suffer much more because things are not in the way how we expect them to be than for actually what they are. So one thing which I learned in this path is to say, okay, I make my expectations as I have objectives, but the conclusion is we should have a very high objective. We need to think big, really think big, but to have a very low expectation and have a constant effort. So one of the essence of the path is high objective, low expectation, constant effort. This is the recipe for happiness also. If we do the other way around, middle objective, not so high, high expectation and low effort, that's the recipe for things not going well. So, really, remember that we can create expectations, but things will never be as we expect them to be. So just relax. We do our part, and then whatever comes, we learn how to deal with it. For me, life, as this inner journey that we go through, the best metaphor for me is like sailing. If we go to sail, we need to have, normally we have a place where we want to reach. That's the first question which I started with. Where do I want to go? Second, we need to respect the winds and we need to respect the currents. We cannot sail going in a straight line simply because it's faster. We need to respect the conditions that we have, and that's life. We have a high objective, but we need to adapt to the situations that appear and the timing of things. just like sailing, but without ever forgetting which is the objective where we want to reach. Okay? I like to conclude this part before opening for some questions with one thing that for me helped me very much in my life and still helps a lot. I will tell you how it happened, so then by telling a small story it's easier for you to remember after, okay? I was in Brazil with my sister and I needed to go to do a vaccination of yellow fever. As Brazilians, we need to do yellow fever vaccination to travel to some countries. And my sister asked me, I do not live in Brazil for many years, so she asked me, okay, how do we go? We go by car or we go by subway? And I said, okay, we go by car. São Paulo, it's a crowded, crazy city. So it took like more than 45 minutes to get to the place in the middle of this terrible traffic. Then to find a place to park, another 40 minutes. Then to do the actual vaccine, 10 minutes. It was easy, fast, done. Then to go back home, another 40 minutes at least. So when we were on our way back in the middle of this terrible traffic, it's not because it's far, it's simply because there is very bad traffic. My sister told me, you see, if we would have gone by subway, now we would have already been home and we could be watching a movie. Instead, look where we are, here in the middle of the traffic. And I looked, and it came clear to me. Yes, it's true. But imagine if we would have gone by subway, what if you would have fell down and broken your arm? Then we would be now in the hospital. And if we would have gone by subway and someone had come and stolen my bag, we would be now in the police station. After if anything can come. Anything. So do we ever use the if related to the past or not? Do we ever look back and say, oh, what would have happened if? Remember, we don't know. There is no real answer. So there is no point of going back again and again and asking what would have happened if. I have what I have. I have what is here in my hands now. And the question is not what would have happened if, is what do I do now with what I have? One of the important things I've learned in this path is that we need to accept things in life. And accept means always put energy in the solution instead of remaining blocked with the problem. As we go along with life, we will see that problems will come. Okay, this is part of life. We'll always have them. And what we need to be careful is not to remain stuck into the problems, but to put our energy in the solutions. This is one of the very important things that we learn from that. Okay, so one more thing only, because there is a very important thing. And with this I really conclude and then we open for questions. What is really important in this journey of life is understanding that what matters is not how long we live, but how we live. When we talk about time, what gives the way of judging time, measuring time, we do not measure time by quantity, but we measure time by quality. It doesn't matter how long is our vacation. It depends on what is the quality of our vacation. It doesn't matter how long we sit to study. It matters what is the quality of our study. I can stay for 10 hours and get nothing. I can stay for 1 hour and get a lot. Depends on my concentration, depends on many other things. So when we think about time, and time is life, what matters is not quantity, but quality. And the other thing is in this journey called life, what matters is not what we do, but yes, what we become. every experience that we do, in which way that experience will transform us. Who I was before doing that and who I am now after doing that. From one year to the other, who I become. That's much more important than actually what we do. Okay? So this is mainly what I wanted to share with you. And I would like to open for some questions. And then after when we concluded the questions, then we will do the final conclusion, okay? Now it's on you. Yes, please.
You said love to others and to yourself is some kind of relief.
Yes.
Makes life lighter. But do you think we need love from others too to be happy ourselves?
It is very good to be loved. It's so nice. But still it's much better to love others. We need love, but in the moment that we will give love to others without expecting nothing back, naturally we will receive love from others. If we constantly look and we stay seeking for others to love us, then it's never going to be enough. And what will happen is that there we are saying, I must be loved, and you are not loving me enough, and you are not loving me in the way how you should love me, and in the way how I expect to be loved. And then what happens? We create conflict, and then we create distance from the ones that are loving us. So, two ways going together. When we give to others, and we are grateful for what we receive, without judging if it's too much or it's too less. We're just happy for what we receive. So this is connected to what we said before of being grateful, of rejoicing. And it's also related with the love that we receive. Because if we focus on this idea that is, I must receive love in order to be happy, and then we have our own idea of how that should be, and then we put people in categories. My parents need to give me love in this way. My friends in that way. My boyfriend, my girlfriend, my husband, my wife, my children, whatever, we put in categories in the way how they need to love us. And then we put an expectation on them. And then what happens when they do not love us in the way how we expect it to be? Conflict. So we give to others without expecting anything back, and we are very grateful to everything that we receive. In this way, we will give more and we will receive much more. Okay. Yes, please.
Have you become truly happy?
If I have become truly happy, I do have moments of great happiness, but I'm still on my path. I'm very happy with the life I have. I cannot complain at all. Really. Are there things, are there moments which are difficult? Yes. For example, this brings me to one point. Some time ago, maybe 2 years ago? I don't remember. I'm sorry, I have very bad memory with time, okay? It was a period in which I was very sad. And I had this feeling of sadness inside of me, and it was just like, not well. So I went to my master one day, and I was there with my teacher, and said, oh, Rinpoche is the way how I call him. And I said, oh, Rinpoche, you know, I'm so sad. And he's so kind to me, and he said, okay, tell me, what's the problem? We make it, we fix it. And in the moment I asked him, I started finding the answer. That's why questions are important. And the answer which I saw was, I don't know really the real reason why I am sad. And what I saw was that I had this feeling, and there were many things around of me on which I could project it, and I could say I'm sad because of this, because of that, but none of them was the real cause of my sadness. So I told him, I said, no, let's just do one thing. We'll wait a bit. We give some time, or for the sadness to fade away, or for it to become clear. It come out of water, it become clear what is the real cause of that sadness. Then I deal with it. Then after some time I went to study in Tibet, and then it passed. And some time after I understood where it had come from. So what I want to say is that I have a very happy life. There are moments which are not so easy. There are moments of a lot of happiness, there are moments of sadness, there are moments which are easy, there are moments which are difficult, there are moments of energy, there are moments of tiredness, yes. Overall, I was one time talking to a friend, and I told my friend, oh, it's not so easy, these things. And he told me, he said, but we don't have a life with intention, we don't have a life to have an easy life, we have a life to have a meaningful life. Is it meaningful? I said, yes. So that's what matters. And it's not always easy. So if I am truly happy, I think I still have a lot to go. I think on my path, I still have many things to develop. I have many ways to grow. But I'm very happy to be on the right path. To see that gradually, things get better.
What do you think happiness is for you?
For me, happiness is to be in harmony with myself and others, independently of where I am, with whom I am, in what situation I am found. That's for me, it's true happiness. Now, it's better than it was before, and generally speaking, it's quite good, but still, I am conditioned by where I am, with whom I am, in what situation I find myself. So that's why I haven't yet found the true final state of happiness. But for me, it's that inner state of harmony with others. Okay, you first.
So that one of the keys to happiness is that you have to lower your expectations. Do you have any tips how you can actually lower your expectations?
Okay. To lower our expectations, one of the ways of doing that is taking away the relation between how and when. I want to have that knowledge. I want to fulfill that objective. Wonderful. I will do the best that I can. But I am not sure how I will do, when it will happen and how it will happen. Okay, so the expectation, it comes with something that I like to call some sort of arrogance. The arrogance is when we say how things should be. So instead of saying how things should be, we should just put it way how we think we would like them to be, and in which is the direction that we go, knowing already that not necessarily things would be in that way, and knowing also that very often things happen in a way how we didn't expect, and things that look bad very often are good, things that looks good very often are bad. Like I remember, just came to my mind one time I saw one speech of Steve Jobs. Maybe some of you have seen. It's a speech that he gave in Stanford University. And if not, it's a very nice speech. And in this speech, one of the things that he was telling about his own life, and there he was saying that, for example, at one point, his parents passed their whole life putting aside money for him to study, because they didn't have college education. So he found himself at a certain point, being in college, using all the money of his parents, and not really knowing what he wanted to do with college. So at a point, the money was short and so on, so he needed to drop out of university. So he was just going to the classes in which he was actually interested in. And what he found out with that was that he started, for example, going to classes of calligraphy and typography, which at that time he thought, what's the use of that? No, but that's nice. Okay. Later, when he was designing the first operational system for the Apple computer, he had all the knowledge of typography, all the knowledge of calligraphy, and then he applied it, making different spaces between fonts and all the things which is interesting about typography that most people normally don't know. And that's why we have normally computers with beautiful fonts. That's how it started originally. So what he was putting very clearly, he was saying, when you make this game of jointing the dots, that we put one dot and then we go with the numbers, and we only know the final image when it's completed, that's life. We can only see between one dot and the other, but we can only see the whole picture after. So we do our best, but we really don't know precisely what is going to happen with that we are doing. But in the moment that we are doing our best, with our heart, with our effort, then everything is fine. Don't need to put the weight upon our shoulder that things must be in this way or in that way. We need to be able to be sure that we are really doing the best that we can do. That's the most important. Another 2 questions here?
Yes, because you said it doesn't matter what you do, but it's important who you become.
Yes.
All your actions, things that you focus.
Sorry?
With all of your actions, are the things that focus.
Okay. As I have said, I just repeat the question. You were saying that I said before, it's not so important what we do, but what we become, but aren't our actions what forms us? Our actions are very important. There is no doubt of that. Okay? And through our actions, sure, they shape ourselves. Okay? The choices that we make, the words that we say, the thoughts that we have, the things that we do, they shape our lives also. So in this sense, it is important. What I meant by saying that what is important is what we become and not what we do, is that very often in life, we do things focusing our attention in what's the external outcome, and not how that action is going to shape our own life and our own selves. So it's more important when we do things, check how that actions are going to shape ourselves more than how that actions are just going to be by itself. So I'll make one example. There was one man, I remember one interview with him. I'm sorry, but my memory for time and names is terrible, as I said. I don't remember his name now. But anyhow, he was a British guy, CEO of a very important multinational company. And at some point, he was so stressed of his work. He had a very high position in business, very much respected, made a lot of money, and very successful, but he was so stressed about it that at a certain point he needed to go to a clinic in England to cure himself, because out of his stress levels he was getting all sorts of problems. And when he went to these clinics, which was like a clinic for addiction to work somehow, he felt very ashamed in the beginning. He said, oh, how can I, the good guy, the guy that is, I am the best here and there, recognized, how can I now be going to this clinic and what will people think about me and so on. But when he arrived in the clinic, he said that when he started knowing the people around, they were all CEOs of other companies and people with all types of jobs doing the same type of life that he was doing. And he understood that he did great things. He made a lot of money, he put a big position, he did things that other people thought were very good, but that actually were shaping his life in a way that was not good for him. So when I say that what is more important is what we become rather than what we do, what I meant, and thank you for your question because it makes it more clear, it's not, what matters is not what we do in relation to ourselves, but it's not important what we do only for what other people think. The importance of our actions is in which way that actions shape ourselves. This is what I meant. So it's correct what we said, our actions do shape ourselves. But when we do things, when we make choices, we need to be more careful. Maybe I do something, and that will make me more happy, will bring me more stability, will give me more joy, but I will make less money. Or maybe on the other side, I will do something that I can become very successful, I can do a lot of things, but will make me a person with more anxiety. I will have a lot of traumas, I will become with a lot of hatred accumulated or whatever. So that was not the best choice. And it just made me to remember one phrase which Albert Einstein said, but I need to read it. Oh, if you could just get, I have it on my phone. So I just get my phone 1 second, sorry. I wrote it down the other day because I really liked it. So, I will just read for you this. It's a very nice story actually. I read it on the news some days ago, and it was Albert Einstein, when he received the Nobel Prize for Physics. He had just known that he had received the Nobel Prize for Physics. He was in Japan, Tokyo. And he was in a hotel, and when someone brought him something from like the post, a courier, and he wanted to give some tips, some money to this guy, but he had no money with him. So he just took a piece of paper of the hotel and he wrote his recipe for happiness. And he gave to this man. And he said to him, sorry, I have no money, but one day this will be worth money. So just keep it. And the grandson of that man, he just sold this paper last few weeks ago for $1.5 million. Okay? So, this is what was written on that piece of paper. A calm and humble life will bring more happiness than the pursuit of success and the constant restlessness that comes with it. A calm and humble life will bring more happiness than the pursuit of success and the constant restlessness that comes with it. So it means that it's more important what I become, if I become happy, satisfied, peaceful, than what I do on the eyes of others. This is the meaning of what I meant. Please.
How important is the Buddhism into you to learn about animals?
How important is Tibetan Buddhism for me to learn about happiness? I think very important. Because Buddhism for me, it is a philosophy of life. What I learned, when I received the teachings from my teachers and the books I read and so on, it's like someone guiding us. Because my experience is like being blind and trying to walk, and then having people on whose hand I can take, and they show me the path, and slowly they help me to open my eyes. So it's very important to have people that know more than we know and that can guide us. People that have more experience than we have that can guide us. This is something which is very important. For me, my greatest gratitude is towards my teachers. The masters I have and I have had. Many of them have passed away already. But, and all of them from Buddhism. So for me, I think Buddhism gave me very, very powerful tools and ways to find my own way in my life. Yes, please.
What do you think is the greatest life lesson you learned?
Sorry?
What do you think is the greatest life lesson you learned?
The
Greatest life lesson.
No, I didn't.
Lesson of life.
Yeah,
The great lesson of life. The greatest lesson of life. Let me think about it. It's difficult to say the greatest because there are many. Okay? But I think that one of the greatest lessons is to be truthful to our hearts and our mind in a state of balance and harmony between what we think and what we feel. Is the harmony between the heart and the mind. When we find that, then we find balance. I don't know if it's clear. We have two aspects of it. Love, the feeling, emotions, and we have understanding, knowledge, vision. And very often the two are separated. We have one part which is, okay, sometimes we are in front of a situation and there is what I feel, and then there is what I think. How what I think is the best, but it's not necessarily matching with what I feel. So when we are able to create the harmony between what we feel and what we think, and the two match together and they blend together, that's the best way. So we need to be truthful to our thoughts, to our understanding, but we also need to be truthful to our feelings and our love. So this mixture, which we call the union of wisdom and love, I think that's the most important part. And one other lesson, because I cannot leave this other one aside, is the fact that all of us, we live within a paradigm. Every one of us, we live within a paradigm. We live inside our own worldview. And to know that we live inside a paradigm, that's a very big lesson. That's, I think, a very important lesson also. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
How does one motivate themselves to live life to the fullest even in times of suffering?
Sorry, a little bit louder.
How can someone learn to motivate themselves to live life to the fullest even when they're in times of suffering?
Okay. How can we motivate ourselves and give force even in moments of difficulty and suffering, right? First of all, suffering is part of life. There is a thought that came to me some days ago, and I have been repeating it these days, but I think for me it was quite clear. It's like, is childhood easy? Not really, right? Is it easy to be when we are a child and we start growing and we need to understand and we need to go to school and learn things and to start learning the world? It's not easy, right? Is it teenage easy? No. Okay. Entering into adulthood and finding a job, completing a profession, building up a family, relationships, and then keeping a relationship, and then having a job, and keeping the job, and going to work, and keeping one life, and maintaining oneself. Is it easy? No. Okay. Is retirement easy? No. Is it dying easy? No. So life is difficult. Okay. And by chance, being born is also not easy. Okay. Some days ago, I was with a friend that just had a child, and you look, the process of being born is really not easy for the baby. Anyhow. So life is not easy, generally speaking. So what happens that, especially when we find ourselves in more difficult moments, the force to overcome them come from few things. One thing is from loving others. This makes a big difference. And I've met, even this morning, I was talking in the hospital, then after that came a lady talking to me, and she came from the most difficult situation. Her son is very, very sick. She was in the hospital with many difficulties and so on. And she told me, what took me out of my suffering was helping others. She was just saying, I started to come to the hospital to volunteer myself, to talk to the other patients and to do something, and by helping others, by loving others, that's what really made me much better. That's what gave me so much strength. One thing which also helps in the moment of difficulties is remembering problems exist and will always exist, but all problems are impermanent, as everything else. Very often I see people saying when they are in a difficult moment, friends and around, and people come in and say, oh, I cannot stay my whole life like this. Normally we would say, don't worry, it will not stay like this your whole life. Or it will get better, or it will get worse, but like this it will not remain, right? So things are not static. But in the moment that we leave something, it looks like it's only that. So one of the important things is, okay, there is a problem, there is a difficulty, there is a stronger suffering. I will deal with it in the best way as I can, but I need to take part of my energy, part of my time, and I need to put into other things also. If we remain only focused into the difficulty, then it may become too much. So one of the ways of finding the strength is putting energy in other things also, which are always there. And one of the best ways is actually helping others. This is one of the things that gives the best of the strength to us in the moments of greater difficulty. Okay?
Do you aim to complete your path?
If I aim to complete my path, some time ago someone asked me, did you fulfill the goals and the expectation that you had or something like this? And I was thinking, I never really put any goals in this way to myself. So if I aim to fulfill my path, I aim to realize things that now I haven't realized really yet. I truly aim to be more coherent with my own perception of reality. I really aim to overcome things which are maybe some small fears, or I really aim to be more stable. I aim to have more awareness. And in this way, yes, I aim to fulfill my path, but not in the sense of reaching a state in which there is nothing more to do. I aim to develop myself better, to become a better person so I can help better others. This, yes. Yes, please.
Do you believe that if a person, like for instance, feels someone they are indeed a bad person, or do you believe that there are bad actions?
Okay. I do not believe that there are people that are good people and bad people by nature. Okay. More than bad and good actions, there are ways of dealing with life that are more positive, and ways of dealing with life that are more negative, which somehow is good and bad actions. Okay? The ways of dealing with life that are more negative is anger, hatred, jealousy, envy, aggression, okay? Insatisfaction, and so on, selfishness. So what happens is that normally whenever we take a person that acts out of a lot of violence, and this comes to my mind with an example. There is a documentary on YouTube called Human. I don't know if you have seen it. Some of you may have seen this documentary. It's a very good documentary. It's called Human. And I don't remember if it's the first or the second. I think there are 3 parts of it. One of them starts with a man talking. It's very beautiful, very strong actually. And this man is a black man from the United States. And he starts talking and he says, I don't remember the precise words, but what he's saying that he grew up with a stepfather that was beating him a lot. And in this process, whenever he was beaten, his stepfather would say to him, I beat you because I love you. And he says he grew up with the idea that you would measure how much someone loves you by how much harm that person will inflict on you. Because that's how he learned. So later, when he was loving others, he was somehow harming that person, which brought to an extreme that finally he killed his girlfriend with the daughter of that girlfriend. It was a terrible thing that he could do, and he got a life sentence in prison for that. And he was telling that finally he learned what actually love meant by the mother of that person that he killed, the grandmother of the child that he killed, when that lady actually came to him and showed him love. And what he was saying is that I acted in that way because that's what I was taught. And when you listen to him talk, he's not a bad person. He's a person that did something terrible. Why? Because that's the way how he was taught. That's the way in which not only he grew up, but that's the emotions that he developed. That's the way, the aggression that came within him. So I believe that every one of us has the potential to develop good qualities or bad qualities. On the other side, I remember one time arriving in the airport from Brazil to Italy. It was a moment in which the airport of Milan, of Malpensa, in Italy, it had a problem with trolleys for luggage. There were not enough trolleys. And then there were all these ladies, very well dressed and very fancy and very polite and very nice people, very civilized, let's say. And they were all there waiting for trolleys for their luggage. Then suddenly arrived 5 trolleys for like 15 people that were there. And then suddenly these ladies trolleys. They were like holding at the trolleys and pulling each one to its own side and shouting to each other. They were not beating each other, but almost. And saying bad words and so on to each other. And I was looking and said, what if, instead of trolleys, they needed to fight for food? What would they do? So very often, the problem is not the people, it's the content in context in which people are. Very often, the problem is not the people, it's the education they receive and the way how they grow up and what they receive. So I do not believe there are bad people. Okay? And just to touch with that, one advice also, there is one documentary also which I saw, which is connected to that, which is a very good documentary to open the mind about that, which is called, the name of the documentary, the subtitle is The Truth About Life. I forgot the precise name now, but it's called The Truth About Lies. It's a very interesting document showing that the way how we behave, it's fully influenced by the context in which we are, and not by who we are just by ourselves.
Do you think prison and other punishments are bad then?
Why people are imprisoned? Basically because they have a behavior that is not suitable to society. And there are mainly two reasons. One is because we want to protect others from their behavior. Another is that we want to teach them that that behavior is not okay. Very often what happens is that people that go to jail, I don't know how it's here in Holland, but I can assure you that in Brazil it's like that. They go out of jail being a much worse criminal than they went in. Because they are treated with so much aggression and so much violence inside, they accumulate more anger, more hatred, more aggression, not to talk about the connections that they create inside. And normally when they go out, not only they continue in the crime, but they continue in a way that was worse than when they were before. This is what happens in many countries actually. So, personally, I don't think that punishment is the best way to solve conflicts. Okay? There are other ways to help to solve conflicts which are much more effective than going through actual punishment. I think it's correct when people have behaviors that do not suit in society and harm others, they need to be somehow held and they need to be directed and helped, actually. But instead of having this attitude of only punishing, we need to understand someone that is acting out of great violence is because the person is in great need of help instead of need of punishment. That's what I think. Yes.
What do you think are good alternatives to punishment then? Like what places do you think could exist?
Okay, here we open a long subject. But what we need to do, first of all, is understand when a person has a certain behavior. Really to know what's the right action, we need to understand why is the person having that behavior, where is it coming from? Okay. And this is complex because it can come from many different reasons, from many different places. I believe that it's good to know limits and to know that if I go beyond that limit, it would not be good to myself. So some sort of punishment, which is a way, it's more a sort of warning, which is a sort in which I say, okay, I know that if I cross that line, I will harm myself, so better I don't cross that line. That's good. But on the other side, we have many situations which come actually from people's addictions, from people's own suffering, from the education that people receive, and many other things, from states of mental sickness and many other things, which bring them to act in a way that is unhealthy for them, for the society in which they live. So the first thing is we need to understand the person and somehow embrace that person instead of just putting the person aside and punishing in this sense. It's a much more complex way of doing it. There is one system which I'm trying to remember the name in English. In Portuguese it's called Justiça Restaurativa. Restorative justice, I think is the name in English. I don't know if you ever heard about this. It's called restorative justice. And it's a system that is placed in many places in the world. There are many schools that have this also. And it's a system to deal with conflicts and violence without punishment. And it works very well, actually. Now I was having a meeting this last time in Brazil with a judge that is working with that, which is basically putting the two sides together. I'm just making it very simple. Putting the two sides together, the one which was the aggressor and the one that actually was the victim. Put the two together and help one to understand the other. And there is a moment in which actually, there is one moment in which the victim actually, accepts and somehow have compassion for the aggressor. And this has a power of changing, transformation in the aggressor also very strong. And the other thing is not only, okay, I acknowledge that I did something that is not correct, so what do I need to change and what do I need to do in order not to repeat that again? That's the most important thing. Because what is done is done. The question is, what do I need to do in order not to repeat what is wrong and to understand that what I did is wrong? So there are techniques, in which I'm not an expert in that, but that have been developed also in the modern times to deal with violence. One of these is this restorative justice, which if you like you can go and study. Sure, on the internet you can find more about that. But I think that it's very important to embrace those that are in difficulty instead of just punishing them. Otherwise it will come back again and again. Just one example connected to it. One friend of ours, he's from England, he was doing research in Oxford University about, his PhD was about the relationship between violence and nutrition. So he did a very, very simple thing. He took the maximum security prison in England, where it was a very violent prison, and he gave to all the prisoners one capsule with the minimum amount that, according to the National Health Institute of England, you needed to have every day of vitamins and proteins and minerals and so on. Okay? So he took that and he gave this to all the prisoners, but some of them were having fake pills. But no one knew which pills were real ones and which pills were fake ones. Only he knew. So he was giving all the pills to everyone, all of them were taking them. And after a few months, what came out was that those that were taking the right pills, their violence came down 33%. The number of violent offenses that they were doing came down by 33%. The ones that were taking the fake pills just remained the same. So what is this showing? That if our brain is not well, we act with aggression most of the times. So very often, where do we see the aggression coming from, the violence coming from? From the people that are malnourished, that don't get the right education, don't get the right food, don't get the right care, and so on and so on. When people are well, they are not violent. Normally, violence comes from a situation of unhappiness and not well-being, and then try to manifest to do something about it. So, the problem of the system of punishment is that it just takes care of the symptom of one problem and is not out to take care of the cause. So I believe we need to go out and study and look and check which are the causes that create that violence. And from that we can start to work on that direction, more on the long term. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, please.
What do you think about other religions?
What I think about other religions. Some years ago, I had a moment of my own life in which I was a little bit in a crisis, let's put it that way. Now actually many years passed. When I'm 36, I was 18. Okay. At that time, I'm not going to make the whole story for you, it's too long. But the answer which I found that really made me better and which I came out of that was to make a very clear distinction between spiritual path, religion, and religious institution. There are three things. One thing is the inner path of transformation, of developing our own love and wisdom and stability, joy, peace, of dealing with our anger, jealousy, pride, and so on. Okay? This is the spiritual path, which is something that I believe that we all have, independently if we follow a religion or not. And it's part of life. And it's a necessity. The religion, for me, it's a method. It's a tool that helps us to develop and to follow this inner path. It's like that's the method that we will use. And the religious institution is the organization that helps the religion to exist and to go on from generation to generation. Sometimes we judge religion because we judge the spirit, the institution. This is the first thing that I think we shouldn't do. Second, I believe that all religions, at least from what I have seen up to now, I have never seen any religion that I think is a bad religion. I think that it's important there to be different religion, and inside every religion there are so many traditions and different approaches. Why? Because we are different. We come from different contexts, we come from different cultures, so we need different approaches. What I think is a big mistake is when we say, my religion is the only one, I am right, you are wrong. From that, we start having a lot of conflict and a lot of problems. But, like Buddha said, when we take the boat to go from one side, let's say, one of the river to the other side, once we reach the other side of the river, do we still need the boat? We don't need to go back. Not really, right? We took the boat to go from one side to the other side of the river. Once we reach the other side, we should not be attached to the boat. So we need to remember that the boat is only there to take us from one side to the river to the other. If your boat is yellow and my boat is blue, if your boat has an engine and I am going with the same, if I am going by hand and you are blowing or whatever, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that it takes us where we want to go. And where we want to go is not to be part of a religion, it's to develop our own inner path. This is what I believe. So it doesn't matter what is the religion. If it helps us to transform ourselves in what we want to become, wonderful. If not, maybe there is another method which is better for us. Okay. But just to conclude, there was a master in Tibet, which I follow very much. His name was Atisha. He said, respect all spiritual traditions, respect all religions, and follow with determination the one that you prefer. This is what I believe. If I think everyone should have a religion, no. I think everyone should follow a spiritual path and should have a method for that spiritual path. It doesn't necessarily need to be one of the world religions and in a formal way. But I believe it's very, very important for each one of us to have the awareness of developing more love and wisdom and patience and stability and so on. And it's also important for us to follow someone that has more knowledge and wisdom than us. I think this is what is important actually. But it doesn't necessarily need to be inside one formal religion. I don't think that's actually necessary. Also because I believe personally that religion by itself, for itself, it's useless. In the sense, if we take out of religion the spirituality, the spiritual path, It's like if we take a hammer, and if the hammer is not being used for its function, it's useless. Or we can take whatever other tool. We can have the most wonderful tool, but if it's not being used for what it's made for, itself, just for itself, it doesn't mean much. Similar to that, the function of religion for me is that of actually helping us to develop our own path. That's the important thing for us to remember. Okay? Okay, one last question. Any there? Okay.
Do you think universal peace is possible?
If I think universal peace is possible, yes and no. If I look to the whole, if I look to the world as a whole, I would say no. Okay, I'm not so optimistic. If I look to every individual, I would say yes. So, if every one of us do our own part, then it's possible. If we expect it just to happen, then it's not going to happen. So, I believe in what is a phrase of my teacher, Lama Gangchen. He says, inner peace is the most solid foundation for world peace. And that's the only way that we can go. It's only through the inner peace of each one of us that we can actually go to world peace. There is no other way around. If we look to all the conflicts that exist in the world, many wars happening, many conflicts inside society, everywhere, even the conflicts within ourselves and our friends and family and work and so on. Where are all the conflicts coming from? From selfishness, from ignorance, from hatred. That's where they're coming from. So what I believe is that yes, it is possible, but for that we need that every individual, one by one, gradually develops each time more love, respect, and peace within oneself. I don't believe I will ever see it with my own eyes in this life. But what I try to do is just, if we interact with those that are around us, and slowly, slowly we try to help them, then I think that we are part in this whole process, which may take, I don't know how long. On a long, long run, I think it's possible. But I have high objective, low expectation, constant effort. That's what I think. Okay? So to conclude, there is one short story that I like to tell you in one phrase. This short story is the following, because most of you are young, and I have one of my main defects is I'm quite lazy. So there's two things that help me on my path. One is a story about one great meditator. His name was Milarepa. And by chance, if you like to read his life story, it also exists in English. It's a very beautiful story of Milarepa. So Milarepa, he was a saint. He was like a Buddhist saint of the 11th century in Tibet. He had a very difficult life, and he became later one of the greatest meditators of all. But now I don't go into details. The fact is that in the end of his life, he was already quite old, he was a bit sick, and he had one of his main disciples, which was called Rechungpa. So they had a very strong connection within each other, very deep connection. And Rechungpa was leaving for a travel, and his journey would take like 1.5 years, because it was 3 months to go to the place walking, 1 year to stay there, another 3 months at least to come back. So it was at least 1.5 years of that travel. That was Tibet 1,000 years ago. So when they were departing, and they knew very clearly that most probably they would not have seen each other again in that lifetime. So Rechungpa was going, and Milarepa, the master, told him, "Oh, my son, you can go secure, because I gave you everything you need on your path. You have everything you need on your path." And he was meaning the spiritual path, the inner path. And on that way, Rechungpa left, saying thank you, following the tradition. in which he would not give his back to his master until he would not lose his eyesight from him. So he was walking backwards until he would lose the eyesight of his master, then he would turn his back and walk. But when he was like, I don't know, 10, 15 meters away, his master called and said, "Oh, my son, come back here. I forgot to give you the most important of all teachings." And he might have thought, no, luckily he remembered now, because otherwise it would have been really too late. So he went back. And when he arrived near to his master stepped back, stood up, stepped back, turned his back to him, raised his skirt and showed his bum to him. And he said that it was a very ugly bum, because he sat for so long time in meditation in the cold stones without even having a cushion, because he was so poor, that he had all the marks in his body of sitting in this cold stone for so long time. Then he turned back and he told to his disciple, he said, "Remember, without effort there is no result." Effort means to put energy in what is good, in what is positive, but not necessarily easy. And the results in life we get by applying energy, by putting energy, by putting effort. This is one of the greatest things that we can gain in our life. Okay? And by that I like to conclude with one phrase that always accompanies me. And it says, Chego samninishu son majong samninishu son aka samninishu son tetarnane lomor trukchulom miseton pasebenandari. This is in Tibetan. That's how it was said originally. In English, it would be something like that. Thinking of doing it, 20 years passed by. I couldn't do it, 20 years passed by. Oh, why I didn't do it, 20 years passed by. That's the biography. In that way, 60 years passed by. That's the biography of an empty life. If there is something that we want to do, we must start today. Otherwise, life passes by quickly, much faster than what we expect. So if there is some change that we need to do in our behavior, some change that we need to do in ourselves, that list that we talked before of what is good for us and what is not good for us, we need to do that without anxiety, but as my teacher, Lama Gangchen, he says normally, slowly, quickly. We need to, no need to hurry, but need to walk on. We cannot stay blocked. If there is something that we think is important, just do it without being afraid of being who you are. Okay? I'm sorry, I cannot but to say one more thing, because I remember you were young. And when I went, after the first time I left the monastery, arrived in Brazil, I went to, my grandmother took me to see the rabbi. I was 13. And the rabbi told me, as soon as I saw him, if I am I because you are you, and if you are you because I am not I, and you are not you. But if I am I because I am I, and if you are you because you are you, then we can talk. I will repeat once again. If I am I because you are you, if I behave in a certain way because you are you, then I am not I. And if you are you because I am I, you are also not you. But if I am I because I am I, and if you are you because you are you, we are truthful to ourselves, then we can truly communicate. So don't be afraid in your lives to be who you are. Okay? I just ask one thing, if there is anything that we said here today, that any one of you, that you think that it may be of some benefit, please try to bring it to your own life. Don't let it here. Okay? Make it yours. That's the only request I have. Okay? Thank you very much.